In this video, we'll be taking a look at one college football game happening on January 7th, 2025, and providing you with a free team pick and total pick for this game, so 2 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on this one college football game after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Miami, Florida versus Ole Miss. The college football playoff rolls on with a Fiesta Bowl semifinal between the Miami Hurricanes and the Ole Miss Rebels on Thursday, and it is a matchup that feels a lot more balanced than the seeding might suggest. Miami came in as the last team in the field, a decision that raised plenty of eyebrows and probably a few blood pressures, but they have backed it up on the field. They went into College Station and handled Texas A&M, then turned around and took out the defending national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes, in the quarterfinals. That Ohio State game was not some fluky bounce or lucky tipped ball show. Miami was outgained overall, sure, but they completely choked out the Buckeyes' run game, holding them to 1.9 yards per carry, stuck them in bad spots on third down where they went just 3 out of 10, and forced Julian Sayin into 2 interceptions. The highlight, of course, was Keontae Scott jumping a bubble screen for a pick six, the kind of play that flips not only the scoreboard but the whole sideline's body language. The box score does not fully capture how much Miami controlled the trenches, especially on early downs where they kept Ohio State behind schedule and forced them into known passing situations. Physically, Miami looked like the tougher group up front in that game, which matters in a playoff run where legs get heavy and mistakes start coming from fatigue as much as scheme. Their front did not just generate pressure, it disrupted timing and made the Buckeyes' offense feel cramped, like every snap was happening in a crowded elevator. That kind of edge in the trenches is exactly what you want when you move into a semifinal against another explosive offense. On the other side, Ole Miss has quietly and then loudly built its own case as a real contender. They blew past Tulane in their opening playoff game with very little drama, which is usually what you want from a favorite in that kind of spot. Then they went into the Sugar Bowl and knocked off Georgia 39-34, helped by some late-game magic from Trinidad Chambliss and some head-scratching choices from Kirby Smart. The Rebels did not luck into that win, either. They outgained Georgia 473-343, held them to 3 out of 13 on third downs, and limited them both on the ground and through the air. The most striking part was the way Ole Miss closed. They piled up 20 points in the final period, flipping a script that usually belongs to Georgia, a team that tends to squeeze opponents in the fourth quarter rather than get outscored. When a team finishes that strong against a heavyweight, it says something about their conditioning, their confidence, and their willingness to keep throwing punches even when it feels like the other side should be the one taking over. People will point to Ole Miss as having the weakest defense among the remaining playoff teams, and that is not completely unfair, but it is also not the full story. Part of that reputation comes from the tempo at which the Rebels play on offense. When your offense runs fast and constantly presses the gas, your defense ends up facing more possessions, more plays, and more chances to give up yards. Against the average football bowl subdivision team, though, this defense is still very good. Coming into the playoff, they were 22nd in predicted points added per play, 5th in success rate, and 11th in points allowed per quality drive. Now, the schedule of opposing offenses down the stretch was not exactly a gauntlet, so you have to keep that in mind. But the defense has shown it can at least support the Rebels' identity, which still leans on the offense as the star of the show. Over the full season, the Ole Miss offense sat in the top 25 in those same 3 efficiency categories, so the structure is clear. The offense pushes the tempo and hunts explosive plays, and the defense plays well enough, possession by possession, to give that scoring punch a chance to matter. The big issue for Ole Miss in this matchup is surviving the most dangerous part of Miami's team, which is their pass rush. Miami has the most lethal pass rush in the country, and they have made life miserable for quarterbacks all season. They finished 9th in front 7 havoc generated outside of garbage time, which basically means once games were still real, their front was still wrecking things. The interesting twist is that Trinidad Chambliss has handled pressure just fine so far. Against Heat, he has completed 54.5% of his passes with 7 big-time throws and only 1 turnover-worthy play. That is the profile of a quarterback who does not panic when the pocket gets messy. His mobility is a big part of that story. He can slide, roll, and extend just enough to avoid sacks, which shows up in his top 40 rating in PFF's pressure-to-sack rate. In simple terms, pressure does not automatically turn into sacks against him. When defenses send extra rushers, Chambliss's sack rate does come up, but he still punishes blitz looks often enough to keep coordinators honest. He is completing almost 62% of his throws against the blitz, with 14 big-time throws, which ranks 3rd nationally, and just 3 turnover-worthy plays. So you get this cat and mouse setup. Miami wants to generate chaos with their front and bring heat, while Chambliss has shown he can take that chaos and still create chunk plays. Miami enters this semifinal coming off a shocker against Ohio State, and that kind of emotional high can be both a boost and a trap. They have proven they belong in the playoff, which removes some of the external noise but also raises the bar of what people expect from them now. The problem is that their offense has not pulled its weight consistently in this run. They scored only 10 points against Texas A&M in the first round, and against Ohio State their offense produced just 17 points. The defense scored, the defense carried, and while that is impressive, it is not the easiest formula to replicate week after week. Ole Miss, for their part, are also coming off an upset win and have been playing with a lot more offensive rhythm. They have scored at least 38 points in 4 of their last 5 games, which shows both consistency and explosiveness. So although Miami's defense is playing at an elite level and absolutely deserves respect, this matchup feels more balanced when you compare the ways these teams currently move the ball and finish drives. Honestly, if you strip away the seeding labels and just look at recent form, this does not feel like a mismatch. It feels like a game where Ole Miss has enough offensive firepower and enough defensive backbone to hang inside the number against a Miami team that can go through scoring droughts. As our first pick for this matchup, the Ole Miss Rebels to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Moving from the spread to the scoring environment, this matchup sets up as the kind of game that can sneak into a higher scoring range, even with Miami's defense playing as well as it has. Ole Miss's offense has reached a point where it feels almost matchup-proof, and that is largely because of Trinidad Chambliss. The Rebels operate at a top 20 pace, snapping the ball quickly, stacking plays, and forcing defenses to communicate under stress. Their explosiveness is not just a narrative thing, it shows up in how often they create chunk plays. They rank 2nd in plays of at least 10 yards, 4th in plays of at least 20 yards, and 1st in plays of at least 30 yards. That is a lot of stress on any secondary, no matter how confident it is. Of course, there is a catch. For those explosive plays to materialize against Miami, Chambliss has to keep doing what he has done all season when the pocket collapses. He will have to evade that nasty pass rush, extend plays just long enough, and still find receivers down the field. So far, the numbers back up the idea that he is built for that kind of chaos. When pressured, he has posted a top 20 passer rating, a top 15 big-time throw rate, and a top 6 turnover-worthy play rate. That combination tells you he is not just dinking and dunking, he is still attacking with intent while avoiding many of the back-breaking mistakes that usually show up under pressure. Miami's recent box scores might make you think this game has strong under vibes, since their contests have generally been lower scoring. They have held each of their last 6 opponents to 17 points or fewer after their loss at SMU, which is a huge credit to the defense. However, that stretch says more about how dominant their defense has been than it does about some grinded-out offensive philosophy. On offense, they still managed to score at least 24 points in 5 of those 6 matchups. So even when the final scores look modest, there is still a baseline of offensive production there. Here is the thing. Now they face an Ole Miss defense that, while solid in some efficiency areas, has shown clear vulnerability against the run and has given up plenty of points to quality opponents. They allowed 24 or more points to Georgia twice, as well as to Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Florida. The run defense in particular has wobbled. They finished the regular season outside the top 50 in standard downs efficiency, 129th in predicted points added per rush, and 94th in rushing success rate allowed. That is not a small crack, it is a real weak point. You can see it when you look at individual games. Georgia running back Nate Frazier averaged 5.7 yards per carry against this Ole Miss front in the quarterfinals. Tulane's Jamori McClure put up 5.6 yards per carry in the first round. Mississippi State, as a team, averaged 6.1 yards per carry in Week 14. That pattern is hard to ignore. It suggests that when teams stay committed to the ground game, they can create consistent, efficient gains against the Rebels. That is where Miami's offense, for all its recent inconsistency, has a real chance to push this total up. Running back Mark Fletcher Jr. is well positioned to attack that soft spot in the Ole Miss defense. If Miami can generate steady success on the ground, they not only put themselves in manageable second and third downs, they also create room for play-action shots that can flip field position in a hurry. Even if the Hurricanes do not suddenly turn into an offensive juggernaut, they have a clear matchup angle that leads to points. There is one concern that naturally pops up when you look at the total, and that is pace. Miami prefers a slower tempo, which can drag down the number of possessions. However, Ole Miss plays at a lightning-fast speed, and that tends to pull opponents into more possessions almost by force. When one team is constantly pushing the tempo and hitting on explosives, the game script often tilts toward more drives, more snaps, and more scoring chances overall. On top of that, Miami should be able to generate its own share of chunk plays against this defense. Ole Miss sits outside the top 50 in explosive play rate allowed, which opens the door for Miami to create field-flipping gains of its own. So you have one team that thrives on explosive plays and tempo, and another that can exploit a run defense with clear issues while also picking up big gains against a secondary that has bent plenty of times. In that kind of setup, it is not hard to imagine both teams climbing into the mid-20s or better on the scoreboard. When both sides have realistic paths to that range, the overall number starts to look reachable rather than aggressive. So while the spread discussion raises questions about who covers and by how much, the scoring profile leans toward a game where both offenses have enough advantages to put meaningful points on the board. That is why the total looks appealing from an over perspective, with both sides capable of doing their part. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.